You don't mind if I snack on my lunch during our conversation. Need to move that over a little bit because I wander when I talk. That's why we have the wireless microphone. There's no way I could stand still. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova. One of the blessings of having my mother in the congregation is when I tell you a story about when I was young, she can verify it. One of the drawbacks of having my mother in the conversation is that when I tell a story about my childhood, she can also contradict it. But I think this one I'm on safe grounds. When I was a very little boy, growing up in La Mesa, which I mentioned for those of you that were here for our grammar discussion a few weeks ago, I had a favorite store in downtown La Mesa. Downtown La Mesa was about maybe a third the size of like Mount Dora, but a similar Main Street kind of vibe going on. My favorite store there was the Rock Shop. I loved the Rock Shop. It was right up at the end of the main street, not in the prime location, and my grandparents, may they rest in peace, who had a wooden toy store, that is to say, they sold wooden toys, not the store made of wood. They would walk me up from time to time, and I loved to just go in and feel the rocks, look at the rocks. They were amazing. So it probably is not much of a surprise that whenever I'm on vacation or going to a new place and I see a rock shop, they've got me. I'm going to be walking in. Very recently, we took our first trip back to my wife's native land of England, and we went on our usual pilgrimage site to the village of Corfe. It's a small little town on the south coast of England, very famous for the ruins of a castle destroyed during the British Civil War. And I love just going there. Main Street is even smaller than La Mesa's. But this time, there was a new shop, a rock shop. So, despite having to be worried about our bus schedule to get back on the bus, to get to the train, to get back to, despite all of that, had to make a stop. So we go in, and I begin browsing, and the kids are with me. Penelope, I believe, stayed outside because it was a little cramped. And while we're there, my keen hearing, the one sense on me that works very well so far, picks up a conversation between the shop owner and a potential customer. The shop owner was saying to her, "Oh yes, I understand that for those types of aches and pains, for those types of problems, I recommend amethyst." And I feel my children tense because they feel me go rigid. And they're worried, what's Abba going to say? Is Abba going to embarrass us? Is Abba going to go over and start talking to the shopkeeper and the lady and say, "What do you mean amethyst is good for your aches and pains? What are you talking about?" And he's holding on to her wrists to feel the flow of her energy. And then he is bringing out different rocks to try and recommend them for her various ailments that she is listing, which was quite a catalog of medical problems. Despite looking quite young and healthy in all other respects, not that that's always the only indication. But really, if I had those types of medical problems, I would be at the NHS. I would not be at the little Corfe rock shop, wondering which one of the various products I needed to buy. But for the sake of my children, I held my tongue. I didn't say anything. We just quietly left. Because they know that is like fingernails on a chalkboard, which actually doesn't bother me, but it is still a useful expression. To hear someone trying to extol the virtues of these different minerals is very grating. And yet, I could see from the expression of the woman who was being treated that for her, this was what she wanted to hear. She was in hog's heaven with the attention being given to her and with the idea, the promise, the hope that with just the right mineral, she would be okay. That's all that was missing, was just the right mineral. So I have here for your consideration today a few samples taken from my own private collection. What, of course, the rock shop owner should have begun with was copper. You got to have copper first. You see, copper is a great conductor. We all know this now because of science class, but apparently this has been known for thousands of years, although no record of it before electricity was invented. But copper was always considered a great conductor, say the books written in the 1970s, all the way back in the ancient times. Because copper can help channel all of the energy of every other stone that is out there. Copper is not just a ductile, a conductive material. It is something that will allow the powerful energy of the crystals and other minerals to enter your body. But wait, there's more. Copper is also very good for your blood flow. As long as you're wearing copper, as long as you're holding copper, your blood will flow well. Look, right now I'm holding onto this copper and my blood is still flowing. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. So, I've got copper for you. But see, copper by itself is not enough. It's not enough of a sale either to pay the rent. Copper by itself is not enough. You have to have something for it, the energy to flow into you. So we have obsidian. The black glass heart of the earth, forged in the volcanic fire. Obsidian, you have to understand, is excellent for digestion. One obsidian spear point to the stomach, and you will never worry about digestion again. Although usually when they're selling obsidian in these types of places, they will conveniently file down the edges and turn it into a smoother shape because, as we know, for practical purposes, obsidian is an excellent knife. And indeed, in the hands of a skilled napper, can be sharper than a surgical scalpel. But that wasn't what they were selling. They were selling its holistic properties. That if only you had this piece of obsidian, then all of your digestive problems would go away, provided you were joining it with the copper, because otherwise you're only going to get a fraction of the obsidian's power. But really what you need to do is not only have these large pieces for when you're having a major problem or attack, you also need to have various jewelry pieces to take with you and other things to clutter around your life, to decorate your life in order to get the full benefit. I'm not going to ask how many of you are interested, because I can see some of you are keenly wondering where can you get a piece of obsidian, because you've got a little pain down here, and the doctor doesn't really pay enough attention to you and doesn't really give you anything that's made that go away, and you're getting very stressed about it, and every time you get stressed, it gets worse. You need something to take care of it, other than something to get rid of the stress, because we all know that's not going away. We see the allure, right? I mean, it's easy to sit and to laugh, and I've played it up very, cartoonishly, but it is easy to understand the attraction. And I don't just mean the attraction from magnets, which is a whole other topic that people go crazy over. I mean the attraction that I just need this. I just need this, and then it'll be fine. And if it's not fine with this, then I just need to add the next piece, and the next, and the next, and that's all I need to do. I'm just hunting for the right formula, the right incantation, the right trick, the right bit of magic. Because we are all fascinated by the idea that there could be a wave of a wand and life could change. The world would be better. My problems would be gone. If you look at the most profitable intellectual property franchises out there, they're all magic-based. And I don't just mean Magic the Gathering, which is a huge industry for collectible trading cards, but Pokemon, one of the most profitable IPs, intellectual properties in the entire world, more than Star Wars, more than Star Trek, by huge margins. Pokemon. The idea that I could capture some amazing spark of life and then make it battle other things for my own will is an incredible promise. That a 10-year-old could have the power over literal cosmic forces in a small ball they put in their pocket. Who doesn't love that idea? Who doesn't love Star Wars? The idea of the Force, that I can manipulate things from a distance, because wouldn't it be so much cooler if I could reach out my hand and cause my cup to float towards me rather than having to walk 10 feet and pick it up myself? Then life would be good. Wouldn't it be amazing if I could know what someone else was thinking and feeling without having to go through all of that trouble of listening to them? It'd be amazing. And I could convince them to do exactly what I wanted them to do without the trouble of making them listen to me and agree, but just with the wave of a hand. It's amazing. And don't think it's only the science fiction and the fantasy. Anybody here who likes 007 or John Wick films, the sort of modern replacement? Do you think that's real? As it was once said, do you think that's air you're breathing in the Matrix? Do you honestly think anyone can do any of the things that are done in any of those movies? Do you know how often the stunt people are injured just trying to duplicate it with 1,000 precautions in an isolated area that isn't even close to the real form? But we want to believe that there could be somebody, a mere mortal, like me, that could leap from building to building, do double backflips and take out people that are 3 times our size, shoot from the center of a room and 12 bad guys will fall dead at our feet. That's all that we're missing, is that magic spark that would make it happen. And when people come along, like me, and say, you know, that's fake, well, we don't get a good reception. Like my children anticipated in the rock shop in Corf. They were running through the scenarios of, all right, Abba's going to go over and start talking about how stupid this is, and then the shop owner is going to be offended and want to kick him out, and the lady's going to be hurt because, you know, she's just looking for some help and someone to listen to, and what's the point? What's the point? What's the point of trying to disabuse people of these notions? Rambam, the very famous philosopher from 1,000 years ago, not some rational skeptic of the modern world, definitely not some atheist, not some scientist that is the boogeyman, that's the killjoy taking away the fun of the world. Nevertheless, tried to take away the fun of the world. He said, look, if I try to talk to a regular person, and he was a little bit of an elitist, I'll give him that. I talk to a regular person, I say, look, tell me about how a baby is made. They'll begin telling me about how there is some angel 3 times the size of the universe that enters the womb of the woman in fire, and there forging the embryo into its perfect state, imbuing it with all of the knowledge of the ages. But I, says Rambam, when I try to explain to them, well, no, it's very simple biological process that there is a seed, the term that was used at the time, and it is fertilized, and then it is planted in the womb, and it begins to grow the same way that a plant grows, the same way that anything around us grows. He didn't have all of the nomenclature of DNA and cell division and things like that, but he clearly understood that there was nothing more miraculous about the formation of a child than there was about the formation of a plant. Nothing less miraculous either in his minds. And yet, time and time again, he says, whenever he tried to explain this to people, he was told, shut up. We want our 3 times the size of the universe flaming angels that are somehow shaping inside the womb, regardless of how silly that sounds. Because we want to believe that that's a layer of the world. We don't want to believe the world is just seeds and fertilizing and soil and all of that. We want to believe in magic. And you can't tell us otherwise. Rambam countered again and again. He said, look, but there is a miracle. There is a miracle that God created a universe where the seed could be fertilized, where from but a tiny seed, life could spring in all of its infinite variety. How is that any less impressive than some gobbledygook fairy tale about a fiery angel somehow reaching into a womb? Why do you find that less impressive? Well, because it's not a piece of copper which is going to help you with your good blood flow. What I mean by that is that this piece of copper, what is the promise that it is? It's not the promise just that it'll work. It is the promise that there is some secret in this world, some layer of existence just beyond my reach, just beyond my understanding, just beyond the power of science to debunk, that if I could just tap into it, everything else would fall into place. That's the only thing that's holding me back. That's the only thing that's keeping me down. If I just find the magic lamp, if I just find the sword and the stone, then everything will be good. It's not that easy. But also it shouldn't be our only attraction. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand Jews have a problem with this. Judaism doesn't. Judaism's been very clear on this point since time immemorial. Actually, we've got a memorial of it. It's literally written in the Torah. But Jews have always struggled with this like any human being has. It's not unique to us, although, like they say, Jews are like everyone else, only more so. We go back into the Torah and we see there is a plague of fiery serpents. And what does Moses do? He erects a bronze statue. What's one of the key ingredients of bronze? Copper. Well done. Yeah, of course, because it was good for blood flow. So he erects this bronze serpent statue high on a standard above the camp. The people look at it and the plague is ended. Whoa, magic. No, says our understanding from the commentaries. It wasn't magic. What it meant was, hey, everybody, look at this. And while you're staring at that, you're also reflecting on what's past it. Meaning, Shamayim, the heavens above, the heights of God's universe. And then you reflect on God, and then you change to the point that you're able to structure your society in a way that the fiery serpents are no longer a problem. The stick with the shiny snake on it was just a teacher's aid. Like a teacher pointing to something on the blackboard with a laser marker. The laser isn't the important thing. It's just there to show you the direction of the important thing. And yet, what happened a few hundred years later? People were worshiping the snake on a stick. Jewish people. It had become a standard in the temple. And people were worshiping the snake on a stick. Hezekiah had to take it and grind it to dust to stop the idolatry that had formed over this thing. Because people assumed that there was an innate power in this bronze serpent. That it would somehow, on its own, answer their prayers, provide them with magic healing, give them some blessing. We have that temptation in our faith. We have that inkling that there's just another layer that we can tap into. If you've been ignoring my bag, this is a real test of eyesight, of which I would fail from where you're sitting. Anybody recognize any of the symbols here on the front? Kabbalistic angelic script. Genuine. Made in China recently. Kabbalistic angelic script. In the Middle Ages, beginning after the First Crusade, but then picking up speed after the expulsion from Spain, Kabbalah became all the rage. Kabbalah. The Mekubalim, the people who had received the hidden tradition passed all the way down from Adam Rishon, the first human being, whispered into his ear as he lay inert on the soil. Passed from him to Noah, from Noah to Avram, who became Avraham Avinu. And from there, transmitted only to the select few. But what does Kabbalah do? Well, it gives you power. if you know how to invoke the right angel, if you know how to invoke the right kavanah, the right intentionality, then you stand in heaven, and you have your hands on the levers of the cosmos. A little twist here, a little pull there. Suddenly the world is doing your bidding. We can see the power of Kabbalah by how amazing the fortunes of Jews have been ever since it became a more powerful part of our community. That's ironic, right? After the First Crusade, did things get better or worse for the Jewish communities of Europe? Worse. It's not a trick question. After the expulsion from Spain, did things get better or worse for the Jewish communities around the main parts of Jewish habitation? A whole lot worse. As we went into the ghettos, was it good that we had Kabbalah? Sure, it was fun to study and it made us feel powerful even as our powers were being stripped away. When you lived in the shtetl and the wonder-working tzaddik came to the town and said, "Don't worry, I have learned these new practices of Lurianic Kabbalah has been infiltrated through the various teachings of Shabbatai Tzvi and other issues into the early Hasidic movement." Well, marrying Eastern European folk religion together with a veneer of Judaism and a lot of hocus pocus. Who wouldn't want to believe that? You're telling me there's an incantation I can have to make sure that my cow doesn't run dry? Sign me up. You're telling me that there's a special scroll with angelic names that I can wear as an amulet that will make me prosper, even though the Tsar is stripping away our rights and freedoms day after day after day. Maybe it will even keep my son, my dear son, from being drafted into the Tsar's army. Sign me up. Where can I buy a dozen? I need some to replace the ones that were taken when my son was abducted by the Tsar's enforcers to protect my other sons, because apparently the first one wasn't big enough. The first one didn't have enough angelic names on it. It was the wrong wonder worker who wasn't really the level of tzaddik as we're supposed to be. Now, I mean, the idea of just, getting on a boat if you could and leaving and going to the New World, whether it be North America, South America, or anywhere else, bah! It's Apikoros talk. That's heretical. We've always lived here in Ukraine. We've always lived here in Russia, Poland. We'll stay. Our amulets will protect us. How'd that work out? Not so well. But you know what the problem was? The problem was they were dabbling in things that were not really inherently Jewish. The angelic script was cobbled together from other different cultures. The whole idea of minerals being used, well, that was just old medicine ideas. The kind of medicine ideas that told you that you could use various forms of mercury to cure teething or syphilis. Had equally beneficial results for both, I guarantee. Mercury poisoning is no fun. But what about, oh, come on. What about finding room on my stand? One of these. Anyone know what this is? A mezuzah. Now we're cooking with gas. Right, a mezuzah. Of course. This is Jewish magic, right? No? Because I can put this on the doorpost of my house and nothing bad will affect me then. It will produce a shell, a protective sphere around me and my family. Maybe I'll get another one for my car. Maybe I'll put one on my office door, regardless of the fact that Jewish law says you don't put mezuzah where you don't live. Although maybe some of you live at the office now, I don't know. This will protect me. I'll find the most beautiful one, the most expensive one, and I'll put it up, and then all of the problems I've had will be gone. Right? Isn't that the sales pitch? There's a problem, though. It's empty. This is not what we mean by a mezuzah. This is what we mean by a mezuzah. I mean, literally the word means doorposts, but work with me with the technical terminology that Judaism employs. It's the scroll inside that matters. You could have a plastic tube that had the scroll, and it would be a kosher mezuzah, and you could have the most beautiful, ornate silverwork case that is empty, and all you would have done is decorate your doorpost. But even with the scroll, have I now found the secret to Jewish magic? Is this the Jewish parallel of copper and obsidian, of all of the different incantations and angelic script? Do you think that mezuzah is protecting you? Do you think that's the way the world works? That God is just sitting there with his giant smite hammer and going, oh, can't hit that house. It's got a mezuzah on it. I'll go hit the neighbor instead. Or do you imagine that if something went wrong, someone was ill, a job was lost, strife between friends, between family members, that it must be that the mezuzah wasn't kosher enough, the mezuzah wasn't big enough, or the mezuzah wasn't put up with the right kavanah. You needed to have the right tzaddik, the right rebbe, the right wonder worker, someone else taken from Eastern European folklore. Their hands had to put the mezuzah up. That's why you had the problems. So if you simply click here, a representative will be with you soon. They will tell you exactly how much it will cost to make such a thing happen. Or, if we don't want to be so crass, they will recommend an honorarium after the fact, and for donations to come for years along. The mezuzah is not magic, because the mezuzah in and of itself is just a case and a scroll. And if we leave it as just a case and a scroll, it will do nothing. You'll tick the box of having done the mitzvah. Great, that is wonderful. I am all for doing mitzvot. Even if you're not 100% sure why you're doing them, that's okay. Don't get me wrong, I am 100% pro-mitzvah. It's kind of a requirement for being a rabbi. But if you're expecting it to do something other than just tick a box, and all you do is staple it to the door, you're going to be disappointed. And you will be missing out on the real opportunity. Remember that snake on a stick? What was the point of that snake on the stick? Did it, in its own magical construction, have some healing properties? No. It was our laser pointer. It was the signpost. It was the guide. When we have the mezuzah on our door and we think of it when we go in and when we go out, we think about how we are living, how I will interact with the world, how will I be the best Jewish person I can be, how will I take the words of Torah to heart, will I speak of them when I'm at home and when I'm away, will I speak of them when I lie down and when I rise up. Those are the words in the mezuzah. Will I actually use what God gave us as the ultimate tool for changing the world, which was not a magic wand, which was not a magic incantation, which was not copper and obsidian or any other of that Nereshkeit. It was instructions. It was instructions. God told us how to make our life better, and it had nothing to do with manipulating the angels into facilitating the cosmic symphony working on my behalf. It's a beautiful metaphor, but so many get caught on the metaphor that they never realize that just hoping that that metaphor will come true is trapping them in the very situation that they are trying to escape. If you think that that magical thinking is going to save you, then you haven't been paying attention for 3,000 years. Because the Jews have been saved time and time again by miracles, but they were miracles that were facilitated by us actually doing the right thing at the right time. If the Jews in Israel had just said, "Don't worry, God will save us," and not gotten up, celebrated Pesach, and walked out and stood at the sea would have opened and they would not have been there to walk through it. the Jews would not have been there to receive Torah. If the Jews had not been willing to cross the Jordan and go into the land of Israel, to march exposed, naked, losing the element of surprise around the city of Jericho, the walls might have fallen, but they would have been miles away, unable to capitalize on the opportunity. If you miss an opportunity to act with kindness, you'll never meet the people who need you to be kind. They will continue to suffer, and you will not know what blessing could have come to your life by having helped them. If you miss an opportunity to study, to learn more, you don't know what you are missing that would open your eyes to a new potential tomorrow, next week, a year from now, 10 years from now, some piece of wisdom that maybe you will be able to transmit to someone else when they need it, not realizing that you have become the transmitter of a miracle for them. We have the capacity to work true miracles, not the nonsense that gets sold in tourist shops and New Age stores with massive markups for those that are desperate. We are all desperate, but do not allow your desperation to make you a fool, because it is only with wisdom that we will overcome our desperation. There will still be hardships. There will still be problems. I cannot promise you, as much as I'm sure our fundraising committee would like me to, I cannot promise you that by coming to service every week, all of your problems will go away. I can't promise you by donating generously to the future of Temple Israel, to helping our children in our school, to volunteering on any of our committees, that you will be healed of your blood flow problems or of your digestive ailments. I can't promise you that. I mean, I could. And in some ways, we might be more profitable if I was willing to do so. But that's not how it works. I can promise you, though, come to services every week, and you'll make friends. Come to services and study, and you will see the world through a different lens. Participate in the community life, whether it be on committees or at services, whether it be donating. And when there is hardship, you will find solace with your community. When you have pain, others who have shouldered the same types of pain will be there to offer advice, to offer consolation. And the more that you understand of Judaism, the more you'll realize you don't need these things. You don't need the trinkets. The mezuzah, don't get me wrong, you need, but only because of what it indicates, only because of where it leads you, not as a talisman. What you need is to do. What you need is to belong, to participate, to interact, to do the hard, grubby work. See, when I said I was the aficionado of the rock shop in La Mesa, the other side of that was I was also a digger. I didn't just like looking at the rocks that were there in the shop. I liked walking around our beautiful little parcel of land where I grew up with a chisel and a hammer, and never wearing goggles, which was stupid of me now in hindsight. And if I saw a cool looking bit of granite, smash! I wanted to have that piece of granite. I wanted to see it. If I was just in the backyard, again, as my mother will attest to, I'd dig a hole. You never know what's down there. You might find something cool. I didn't just want trinkets that someone else had packaged and put in a display window. I wanted to find it with my own hands. And I wanted to come back in sweaty and dirty, which was often the case in San Diego. Because that meant that I was actually engaging with the world. I didn't have the words to articulate it at the time, but I didn't want a display case of someone else's trinkets. I wanted the results of my work, of my efforts. And that is the same promise God has given to all of us for 3,000 years, since the first gift of Torah, since God first reached out to Abraham, since God first crafted Adam Rishon, the first human being. This is your world. Work. Do things. It'll be okay. It's as simple as that. There are no shortcuts. There is no magic. There are no incantations that you can do that will replace the efforts of your spirit and your body. God made the world like that, and I'm sorry. We can still indulge ourselves at the movie theater and TV shows and all of the other fantasies that we have. Love all of those different fictions, but recognize them as fictions. And don't wait for them to save you. Don't wait for them to save your community. Don't wait for them to save the world. That's not how it works. It's much more beautiful than that. God told us how it works, told us what we could do. All we have to do is do it. It's really very, very simple. I wish I could have told that to the woman in Korf, but I owed something to my children. Shana Tova.